Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who's on tonight. We have Derek. Great to see you, Derek. Great to have you on. Hope you're well. We also have Killer. Great to have you on moderating. Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you. Enzy the God. Great to have you on. Great to have you on. Mike Higgins. Great to see you. Ruth. Great to have you on. Chromos 33. Great to see you. Cahol. Great to have you on. Hope you're well tonight. Audrey, my good friend. Great to see you. Hope you're well. We also have Buxton. Great to see you, Buxton. Hope you're fine. We also have Ian. Great to see you. Ruth. Great to have you on. John O'Sullivan. Great to see you. Nodialsi. Great to have you on once again. Ben. Great to see you. Who else have we got? Gene T. As always. Great to have you on, Gene T. We have, let me see. Maria. Great to have you on in the Netherlands. Hope you're fine. We have Ben. Great to see you, Ben. And Ewan, great to see you. Colin, great to have you on. Katrina Bryce, great to have you on. Hope you're fine. Interacted a lot with Katrina on Twitter, so that's great to see you on the stream tonight. Adrian, great to see you. Mark as well. Rasco, great to see you. Paul Clark, great to have you on. Inconsequential, great to see you. And we're up to 183 member guys. To smash the like button as you jump on. I'll have to go quickly, of course, as always. Verti, great to see you. Verti, Chatty Rat, great to see you. Reagan Elite, great to have you on. Young Ralph too. Number 3, great to see you. So many on tonight. Oh, we have a super chat from Valerio. Thank you so much, Valerio. Hi, Max. What happens when the grace periods are over? That's a very good question. What's going to happen when the grace periods finish? The checks will have to be carried out. So I think it's going to slow down a lot of trade, and probably, depending on how Northern Ireland reacts to that, I presume you're talking about the grace periods in Northern Ireland, but also the grace periods in Britain. So I covered in a video where there was a guy from the cold chain. So, you know, dealing with frozen items or cold items, chilled items. And he said that UK businesses are getting up to speed. They've learned, there's been a steep learning curve, but things have improved somewhat. But he's concerned about what happens on the European side. And I'm concerned about what's going to happen on the European side too. And there could be trucks held up on the European side because the paperwork isn't filled out correctly. And that's a real concern at the moment. Not so much a concern on the British side, but a concern on the European side. Remember, there are two sides to every border, and if things are not up to speed on one side, well, they don't get over to the other side. Thanks so much for that super chat. So I think from the 1st of January, from the 1st of April, I think it is, or the end of April, when the SPS checks come in, yeah, you're going to see a lot of disruption. It can't be avoided. It's going to happen. And we're going to see, we're going to really start to see the impact of Brexit in 2022. So watch this space. Thanks so much for that super chat. We have Duke on. Great to see you, Duke. We also have Wee Scott's Dog. Great to have you on, Wee Scott's Dog. Hope you're fine. York, great to see you. Hi, Max. Sorry I'm late joining. No worries. Audrey, great to have you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. We also have CGM. Great to see you. Wim as well. So I want to jump into the first story tonight. This is, my good friend. My good friend, Sir Desmond Swayne. Should we call him Sir? Does he deserve that title? So he says, people have the right to elect racists and misogynists, says. So I covered this in a video already, but I just wanted to highlight a bit more about it. I think it's a nice opener for anyone who hasn't seen the video. Basically, Sir Desmond Swayne is not too happy about some new code of conduct rules or guidelines that are coming into the House of Commons. Yes, they actually have a code of conduct. Would you believe it? So they want to bring in some anti-discriminatory rules or code And people like Sir Desmond Swayne are not too happy about it because they feel it as maybe curbing their freedom. Freedom to be what? To be racist? I'm not sure. So it says here, Sir Desmond Swayne said that he hoped his constituents would not choose someone with such views, but said that the principle of democracy is undermined by a proposed reform to the standards system governing the behaviour of MPs. So the Commons Committee on Standards has suggested MPs should abide by the parliamentary code and demonstrate anti-discriminatory attitudes and behaviours through the promotion of anti-racism, inclusion and diversity. Now, how would anyone have a problem with that? Sir Desmond, MP for for New Forest West, told the Commons a debate would be very helpful in government time because some of the aspects of the report, such as the potential extension of the jurisdiction of an official into what happens in the lobbies and in the select committees, touch on the principles of the Bill of Rights, that no proceeding in Parliament be questioned in any place or any court other than Parliament itself. And indeed, the principle of democracy is undermined by the requirement that we may be required to subscribe to behaviours to promote certain attitudes. Then he went on to say, I hope my constituents never elect a racist or a misogynist. Okay. But they have the right to do so. And then Jacob Rees-Mogg responded to that in typical Jacob Rees-Mogg style. So what are the recommendations from the Select Committee on Standards? So it says a new requirement for MPs to have a written contract for any outside work, which makes it explicit that their duties do not include lobbying ministers, following fellow members or public officials. Well, that sounds quite reasonable, no? That you shouldn't be lobbying on behalf of companies or outside interests. Tightening rules to prevent MPs claiming that they were acting to prevent a serious wrong as a loophole for lobbying. Okay, that's good. Increasing from 6 to 12 months the period during which lobbying is banned following the receipt of a payment from an outside interest. Introducing a new safe harbour provision so MPs can be protected from investigation for potential breaches of the Code of Conduct if they seek out and follow the guidance of officials before taking up the role. So the focus on standards in Westminster follows the case of Conservative former Minister Owen Paterson, who was found to have breached lobbying rules and faced the prospect of a 30-day suspension from the House of Commons before quitting as an MP. Don't see anything here about anti-racism or anything like that, but wouldn't we expect members of Parliament to uphold these principles anyway? You know, in your own job, Akis Mad, great to see you on the stream. Fact Not Fiction, great to have you on. Hope you're well. You know, you would, if you work in any company, they would have a code of conduct, and you have to follow those guidelines. And if you break them, then you're likely to be fired. Swayne doesn't realise that the victims of racism and misogyny should have rights to be protected from hate. Yes. So I don't know what his angle is, because Sir Desmond Swayne is an unusual MP. I think he's a bit like, what's his name, Brexit hard man Steve Baker, who's trying to set out a space for himself within the Conservative Party, a power base. And I think Desmond Swayne is a bit like that. Or he could just be looking for attention. That could also be a possibility. He likes attention, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's just doing this for attention. The idea that I'm here defending, you know, no one would want to elect a racist or a misogynist, but they should have the permission to do so. But people will still be able to elect them, but they won't be allowed to express themselves in the House of Commons. That's the point. You know, whatever you feel, whatever your ideas, as long as you keep them to yourself, there's no problem. The problem is that there would be people who would use the House of Commons as a platform for such ideas, and we've heard many of them before. People talking about what's illegal migrants coming across the sea. You don't know that these people are illegal migrants. Even the terminology is wrong. I'm betting on attention. You were probably right, Night Raven. Yes, great to see you on the stream, Night Raven. Yeah, I think it's more to do with him trying to get attention for himself or his team, and I think him and others are trying to set out some sort of mark their territory within the House of Commons and create sort of power bases within the Conservative Party, so that later on, when the Tories want to push through a policy, they have to go to the likes of Desmond Swayne, or they have to go to the likes of what's the other guy, Steve Baker, to get them on board, and then they have to give some compromises or some sweeteners in order to get their support. I see it somewhat like in Ireland some years ago, when you had a lot of coalition governments that needed to rely on independent TDs or members of parliament, and it was a case of almost a case of the tail wagging the dog, where these independent members of parliament would get massive sweeteners for their constituencies, and in a sense, regular MPs or TDs were not too happy about that, because they were struggling to get some crumbs for their constituencies, while these independents, who were not part of the party, not part of the government, were being handed massive amounts of cash and money and resources and sweeteners in order to maintain their support for the government. That's Brexit hard, Steve Baker to you. Waffling on, well said. Swain is also suggesting that racists and misogynists have the right to make donations to the Conservative Party for seats in the Lords. Of course, yes. The money is not racist. The money is not misogynistic. So that's just fine. I love there was a SNP MP on Thursday or on Wednesday, I don't remember, where he said that Jacob Rees-Mogg, had, I don't remember, it was like £6 million or something. He made £6 million from something, and he said, that would have been enough to buy 2 places in the House of Lords. That was wonderful. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you prefer secret racists and misogynists to those who identify themselves? Actually, no, I don't prefer any type of racist, but you can't keep someone out. You can't identify whether they're racist or not until they actually speak. So, and I'm not just applying this to MPs, I'm talking about people in general. We don't know people's ideas. Pete Wishart, yes. We don't know people's ideas until they actually broadcast them. And but the thing is, if there's somebody who is a racist or bigot, well, they shouldn't be in the House of Lords or in the House of Commons either, because there should be a code of conduct for that. And we could apply that to Holocaust denial or any other forms of like language that is beyond the pale, for example. Anyway, let's before we move on, just read some more of your comments. Johnson wrote awful racist and homophobic and imperialistic and misogynistic stuff in the past. Hardly surprising that's the culture. Enough voted for him to represent British or English values. Yes. Johnson has a long history of writing pretty horrible stuff. Probably because he believes it, and I think Boris Johnson would break many of the codes of conduct. Pretty sure about that. Would he get punished? Of course not. He hasn't got punished so far, so. They don't have to be truthful. They just have to blow that dog whistle loud enough. Yes. We've seen it on numerous occasions. Jacob is now under the spotlight. Yes, it would be wonderful if Jacob Rees-Mogg was forced to resign. That would be wonderful. His flair in the House of Commons would be missed, of course, but he is a horrible individual. The fact that he considers food banks uplifting. I see Jacob Rees-Mogg as the type of person who truly looks down on everyone else, looks down on people who are not Tories, or not even Tories. I mean, people who haven't gone to the likes of Eton. That's one of the reasons he didn't like John Major. John Major came from a middle-class background. He didn't go to a private school or public school, as they call them in the UK, which is private education. And Jacob Rees-Mogg never liked John Major for that, because he's not one of us. He's not a true Tory. Yes, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Ross getting investigated. Mr. Ross, he should stick with the refereeing, I think. Derek, great to see you. Max, he's such a liar as Johnson. He's as much a liar as Johnson. Yes, he is. And he even lied to the Queen, for example. So that was pretty bad for somebody who claims to be more British than the Queen herself, perhaps. Rees-Mogg said state education should be. People are potted plants. My God. Hi Max, thanks for shining a light on all of this BS. It's my pleasure. If we can, the channel is growing, but if the channel can have an impact, that's all I'm hoping for. It's more than I've hoped for, I should say. Anyway, let's move on. Go on to Brexit, of course, because most of you here are here for Brexit, not for Sir Desmond Swayne. So it says here, UK plays down tariff, Brexit link in US steel tariffs row. So this is from the BBC. It says, reports suggesting a US decision to maintain tariffs on British steel is linked to Brexit and Northern Ireland are a false narrative, Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt has said. Look, I've said this before. If the Americans feel that Boris Johnson and Lord Frost and the Brexiteers are messing about with Northern Ireland, they're going to mess about with the Brexiteers, and imposing tariffs or not removing tariffs could be one of those ways of punishing Britain for messing about with Northern Ireland. She said wrangles with Brussels over the Irish border. It's not the Irish border, it's the Irish Sea border. Anyway, the Irish border were entirely separate from trade with Washington. It comes after the Financial Times reported the issue was stopping the UK resolving the steel row with America. The US lifted tariffs on EU steel last month, but kept them on UK steel. There, another Brexit benefit. If the UK had been a member of the European Union, then it would have had those tariffs removed as well. Speaking in the Commons, Miss Mordaunt said the FT report might be true in terms of how people in the US feel, but it's a false narrative. These are two entirely separate issues. Then why didn't it happen for both entities? Why didn't the US remove them for the EU and the UK at the same time? Why was the UK being singled out here? We don't do ourselves any favours if we perpetuate such false narratives, she added. So you just have to believe in Brexit. The Trump-era tariffs of 25% on steel products and 10% on aluminum were imposed on the EU in 2018 when the UK was still part of the trading bloc. The US agreed to end the duties on EU products in the autumn, but the tariffs, which nearly halved UK steel exports to its second largest market, remain in place on British steel. The FT reported that the US and UK talks to resolve the issue could not move ahead due to Washington's concerns over UK trade threats to trigger Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So what needs to happen is the steel industry, particularly workers and businesses in those areas, those parts of the country, need to put pressure on their local MP, who is a Conservative, if that's the case, to put pressure on the government, to put pressure on Boris Johnson, and in particular the party. And then you'll see Lord Frost getting a memo saying, stop talking about Article 16. And we have seen already how Lord Frost has taken a few steps away from triggering Article 16. I've said on numerous occasions, I don't see him triggering Article 16 in the short term anyway, because there's no benefit. There's no real benefit in triggering Article 16. They keep saying, yes, the tests have been met, but they haven't triggered it. Why not? The excuse is, well, we're keeping all our cards on the table, or keeping everything on the table. But that's, if something is really damaging trade between two parts of the UK, Great Britain and Northern Ireland, surely you would trigger Article 16 as soon as possible. But they're not doing that. So somebody's lying. The protocol is a clause in the Brexit deal that leaves Northern Ireland in the EU single market for goods, while checks are imposed between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The idea was to prevent a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which many feared would have destabilised the Good Friday Agreement peace accord. But it has increased red tape on trade between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and according to unionist leaders, sparked riots and violence this year in Belfast. Downing Street has threatened to trigger Article 16 to override the protocol, something Washington has warned against. See, when it comes to triggering Article 16, it doesn't suspend the protocol. It suspends part of the protocol. But I think the EU's concern with Boris Johnson is that, well, Boris Johnson is dishonest and Lord Frost is dishonest. And their concern is that, yes, they'll trigger Article 16 and then not move forward with the rest of the protocol. And they'll use Article 6, this is my take on it, that they'll use Article 16 as some sort of stumbling block. Oh, look, we can't implement the rest of the protocol because we need to sort out Article 16 or this part of Article 16 first. So we're going to trigger Article 16, say this particular issue is a problem, it needs to be resolved, and then they will put the brake on everything else. And that's what I think the EU believes as well. Kim Dorick, a former ambassador to the US, said the reports on the troubled state of trade relations between the UK and the US are confirmation that the US will act to protect peace that they helped broker in Northern Ireland. He added that the UK was not going to have a thriving trade relationship with our biggest trading partner, the EU, nor a free trade agreement with the US until the government stops threatening to walk away from the international agreement on Northern Ireland they negotiated and acclaimed only a few months ago. Look, it's a case of, and I've said it before, you threaten peace in Northern Ireland, the Americans will get involved, and not removing these tariffs is getting involved. Once again, Penny can say what she wants, but if the tariffs were removed for the EU and not removed for the UK, then there's a problem between the US and the UK. Why is the US doing that? If it comes down to Northern Ireland. The EU is still one of the most important trade partners of the US. The EU is not the UK. Good point. Just run a huge campaign that says invoking Article 16 will make us rejoin. Job done. That would be good, yes. But Frost said he cares about the Good Friday Agreement. The DUP said so too. Yes, yeah, the DUP cares so much about the Good Friday Agreement. The fact that they're using something so delicate as peace in Northern Ireland as a bargaining chip against the EU. For what? What are they trying to achieve? What are they attempting to negotiate? What does Lord Frost want? I think Lord Frost wants not to do nothing and just allow trade between Northern Ireland and the rest of the EU to develop, to grow, to the point where we get to next year, which is May 2022, when the elections take place in Northern Ireland, and then you have a pro-protocol government in Northern Ireland. Like the majority in the Northern Ireland Assembly is supportive of the protocol, and you have a Sinn Féin First Minister. And at that stage, it's going to be very difficult for the protocol to be removed. And that's a huge concern for the Unionists in Northern Ireland, particularly the DUP, because they're running out of road. They're hoping that Lord Frost will be their knight in shining armour, and he will come along and he will trigger Article 16, suspend the protocol, and do what? Even if he suspended the protocol, okay, then what? That's not going to fix the situation. But this is a huge problem I have with the likes of the DUP and the Traditional Unionist Voice and others in Northern Ireland who want to get rid of the protocol. They don't actually have an alternative. Ben Habib and Kate Hoey and all of these, they have no alternative. Yes, they would like to put a hard border on the island of Ireland, but they don't understand the bigger picture here. They don't understand that the EU don't want that. They don't understand the Americans don't want that. And they don't understand even that the British government don't want that. Because no British government wants to be the one that undermines peace in Northern Ireland. Not even Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is a narcissist. He only cares about himself. But he also cares about his reputation. And he doesn't want that to happen. Otherwise, he would have triggered Article 16 already. The Tories like Lord Frost. Macron called Boris Johnson a clown. He did. And I said, in one of the videos, Boris Johnson ruffles his hair. He poses like Benny Hill. He wants people to think he's a clown. So calling Boris Johnson a clown is like calling the Pope a Catholic. Yeah, that's what he is. What do you... calling Boris Johnson a clown is not an insult. It's a statement of fact. Because that's what he aspires to be. Gove is very, very quiet. Yes, he has poop smoke. Not sure what that is. Macron underplayed that. Sorry, Wisconsin Dog says, David Frost says that he cares for Northern Ireland. He swears, as the DUP, as do the DUP, they must be trade free, and that's why they realize. That's why they really do scares. Yes, sorry about that. Oh, I'm terrible with poetry. Ever since the original Ian Paisley, the DUP has always been saying no to change, unless it's been offered. First Minister, of course. Yes, and £1 billion. If they were offered £1 billion, they didn't say no to that. And where did that £1 billion go? Remember, Theresa May gave the DUP £1 billion for their support, and then her government collapsed anyway. Did the DUP give the money back? No, they did not. Where did that money go? Nobody's asking that question anymore. With first past the post and the media the way they are, chances are very low that things will change, in my opinion. Yes, the things are not going to change until first past the post is removed, is done away with, and proportional representation or something similar is brought in. It's a real struggle at the moment for the Labour Party to win we've seen a bit of a shift at the last. Well, we'll get to that by-election later on, but there has been a bit of a shift. But you would need a massive swing, and you'd need it consistently across the country. And even with that, Labour probably wouldn't be able to govern on their own. They would need the support of the SNP. And that would be a very difficult marriage. I can solve the Irish border problem. Scottish independence. We can manage the border with Northern Ireland, get their freedom movement back. Why can't Scotland have something like the Northern Ireland Protocol? Of course, most trade between Scotland and and outside Scotland is with England. But if you had, you could have freedom of movement. That would be acceptable. But you would have checks on goods coming from England into Scotland. But my idea is that probably by the time Scotland joins the EU, I think Britain, whatever's left of it, Wangland, as Graham Hughes calls it, which is a wonderful name, Wangland or Britain, whatever's left, will, I think, rejoin the single market and the customs union at that stage. So one of those things will happen. I don't know which will happen first. Probably Scottish independence and Scotland joining the European Union. At that stage, you won't need a border, because if Scotland's in the EU and the rest of Britain is inside the single market and the customs union, then there's no need for a border. Look at the last 5 years. Whenever something bad happens, the Tories, they shouted Brexit and were let off the hook. I think that's changing, Aaron. Thank goodness that's starting to change. For whatever it was, they can continue bringing Brexit. But now, yes, things are changing. Even the BBC now have started using the Brexit word. Last year, they would not touch Brexit with a barge pole. So I think that's slowly changing. Obviously, it's too late. They should have been talking about Brexit a long time ago, but no. If we had PR, the Lib Dems and the Greens would vote. Vote would go up massively. Labour, they wouldn't need to have a deal with the SNP. Yes, that's true, Ewan. But that would require proportional representation first. But you need to change the government in order to bring in proportional representation, because the Tories are not going to support it. So you need to get the Tories out, and then you need to bring in proportional representation. But I don't know if proportional representation will be well supported, will be something that the SNP would support in Scotland, because they are doing quite well at the moment in Scotland. So I don't know if they would like to rock the boat with PR, but definitely in England it needs to change. Okay, let's move on. About Brexit, of course, nature charities accuse Defra, the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, of breaking Brexit farming pledges. Really? The UK's largest environmental charities has slammed the government for not doing enough to encourage the uptake of nature-friendly farming methods to tackle climate change. The Wildlife Trust, the National Trust and the RSPB said the government's Brexit farming promise were broken following the release of the Sustainable Farming Initiative Scheme Roadmap. Details of the eagerly awaited scheme were unveiled on Thursday, showing how farmers will be paid for managing land more sustainably. But the announcement was called a huge disappointment by the nature charities, adding that the plan did not bode well for nature, climate or farming. They warned that the UK's post-Brexit reform of agricultural subsidies risk recreating the status quo by funding good practice. Concerns have been raised that the government is failing to come up with the ambitious scheme to encourage more farmers to undertake nature-friendly practices. Environment and nature charities believe that the pledges made by the government in the 25-year Environment Plan are now in jeopardy. Proponents of the nature-friendly farming said that instead of causing pollution, greener practices could help clean up the countryside and reverse the UK's label of being one of the most nature-depleted countries. Claudio, thanks so much for that super chat. How DUP explains to Northern Ireland people, your family have more money, your life will improve, and with your business, but that's wrong. Sorry, how the DUP explains to Northern Ireland people, your family have more money, your life is improving with your business, but that's wrong. I'm sorry, I don't fully understand your question. In regard to the DUP, Brexit. If you're talking about how they sold Brexit, the DUP sold Brexit as a benefit for Northern Ireland, that we would be free of the common agricultural policy, we'd be free of the restrictions from Europe, whatever those were. We would be able to determine our own outlook. We'd be in control. All of the same sort of rhetoric that the Brexiteers were pushing, just with a sort of Northern Ireland slant to it. I think it was Ian Paisley Jr. who went on the BBC and said, look, we send so much money over to Europe and we get so little back, which was of course completely false, and he wasn't challenged on it. But now taking away the protocol, if you end the protocol, it creates massive uncertainty in Northern Ireland, and a lot of the businesses who want to invest in Northern Ireland would decide, okay, we're not going to invest there anymore because we don't know if the protocol will remain. I think the fact that many large companies, there was one a couple of weeks ago, these large companies have invested in Northern Ireland is because they believe, or they have received some confirmation, maybe from within Whitehall, that the protocol is going to remain. Not from Boris Johnson, but maybe some senior civil servants who know a lot more than the media do, and they've been given some sort of assurances. I think that's probably what's happened, and these businesses have said, okay, we're going to invest in Northern Ireland. Because if you're a large corporation and you have very deep pockets, you can get on the phone to a senior civil servant or a politician in the government and get the truth. What's really happening? Because we want to invest. Is it safe for us to invest? Yes or no? And they probably gave them, don't worry, the protocol is going to stay. Don't ignore what you hear in the media. The protocol is going to stay. And I would generally believe that because, as I said before, Boris Johnson could have triggered Article 16 at any moment, and he hasn't, even though he said, yes, the tests have been met. I hope I answered your question, your super chat, Claudio. I hope I didn't get too confused. So just back to this article, it says the farming accounts for more than 10% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions, so transforming is critical to tackle climate change, the three charities said. Greg Bennett, chief executive of the Wildlife Trusts, said the roadmap showed a shocking lack of ambition, which did very little to address the climate and nature crises. After leaving the European Union, we were promised that billions of pounds of taxpayer money given to farmers would be used to improve our natural world, he said. There's so much that farmers could be rewarded for doing, such as restoring peatlands and employing ambitious measures to prevent soil and pollutants from washing into rivers to help wildlife to store carbon. It's an absolute scandal that the government have failed to seize this unique and important opportunity to improve farming so that it can help restore nature and address the climate crisis. And yes, unfortunately, the Tories are not interested in protecting nature. They're interested in protecting their interests. And I don't know if it's a case of, well, we're not going to rock the boat with farmers. We'll just give them some money to maintain the status quo. Just keep doing what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're polluting the soil. Doesn't matter if you're pumping too many pesticides into our crops. That's okay. Just keep what you're doing because we don't want to upset you. And it would be too expensive to pay you to do something different. We made lots of promises, but our wallet can't afford it. I think that's always been the case with the Tories. And we've seen it when it came to levelling up as well. How many, a couple of weeks ago, Boris Johnson cutting back on rail links, probably because he made promises his wallet couldn't commit to. His wallet couldn't keep. The cost of the Republic the cost to the Republic of Ireland for United Ireland will help to cool the Irish economy, in my opinion, and will attract grants from the EU and the US. Yes. So many people have said, look, United Ireland would be very expensive for the Irish taxpayer, and that's true. Yes, it would be very expensive, but there would be a huge amount of money pumped in from Europe and probably from the United States as well. And a huge amount of money is already being pumped into Northern Ireland as part of the peace project, the peace fund. So billions of euros has been pumped into Northern Ireland to maintain peace, to build infrastructure, to provide services to the community there, and it's going there not to win votes. It's going there because of areas that are deprived. And Northern Ireland has benefited from that. And if there was a United Ireland, I'm sure it would benefit from support, financial support and financial support from the European Union and political support from the United States. Okay, let's move on. Keep an eye on the time. So we have EU's Šefčovič urges Britain to conclude medicines deal for Northern Ireland. Oh, this is quite short. I was expecting it a bit longer, sorry. Not sure what happened there. Brussels, so the European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič urged London on Friday to conclude a deal to allow medicines to flow easily from Britain to Northern Ireland, as well as other issues concerning trade to the British province. Time to get medicines across the finish line and show strong political will to advance on the rest. This will translate into real benefits for all communities in Northern Ireland, Šefčovič said in a tweet after the virtual meeting with British Brexit Minister David Frost, adding that they would meet again next Friday. So, yeah, there's progress has been made. It's funny you see these little angry faces. Somebody's angry about that. Progress has been made. And this was never really an issue, but it was something brought up by Brexiteers as an issue. Daily Blaze, great to see you on the stream. Or Daily Blaze. Sugar Free too, great to see you, Sugar Free. This was brought up as an issue, but really it was not an issue. If medicines had to arrive in Northern Ireland, they would get there. But the European Union, once again, has shown flexibility with the implementation of the protocol. But this is, once again, it's not taking away parts of the protocol. It's saying, okay, what can we do to allow medicines to move from Great Britain to Northern Ireland? So I think one of the ways of doing this was to certify certain medicines as permissible in the European Union, or there was something about labelling that the British government refused to get involved in. So it was basically putting a UK label on certain medicines so that when they arrived in Northern Ireland, they would not be for sale in the Republic or in the EU. That's the main issue. It's about stuff that comes in from Great Britain should not be sold on. And that applies to all third countries. In the same way, I don't think, I'm not sure about other countries, but yeah, that's because then there are other issues about trade deals. It's a non-issue, far bigger problem in January. Go on, mention it, Max. The protocol has always been in flux. It was designed that way. Yes, it was not designed to be something permanent, but something permanent but flexible in that sense. That it's here, but we know that going forward, it will probably be rendered useless or obsolete at some stage. That's probably likely what's going to happen. And I said before, I think the British government, their plan is for trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland to basically dry up or get to a stage where checks don't need to be carried out, and people act as if everything is back to normal, and it takes the problem of Northern Ireland off British hands, and eventually a united Ireland will come about. And I think that's part of the Tory plan as well. They just don't want to be blamed for it. They'll be very happy for Northern Ireland to become part of a united Ireland. They would be very happy with that. They don't care about the union, obviously. Bjorn, thanks so much for that super chat. Will you cover the UCU strike that happened today? Wow, okay, thanks for that super chat. Let me maybe during the break I'll pull something up about the UCU chat, UCU strike. So I will cover that definitely. Thanks for that super chat. I hadn't planned, but I'll fit it in definitely. The protocol was temporary. When we get stability, it will fade away. It will no longer. When you have stability, when in a sense, when checks are no longer required or the infrastructure is there that trade moves smoothly, then the protocol will not be required. Anyway, let's move on. I think we'll take our little break now, and then we'll be back in a moment with our with some more serious stuff. So I'll bring up our funny moment for this is very funny. I'll show you this video. It's very funny. I hope you enjoy it, and then we'll be back with some serious stuff in a moment.
Hiya, what can I get you?
Coffee, please, you twat. Don't tell me what to do.
What?
Hey, mate, can I get a coffee, please? No, tea. No, coffee. No, tea. No, coffee. No, tea, coffee. Oh, coffee or tea, coffee or tea, coffee or tea. Close call, but can I get a coffee?
Yeah, what kind? We've got flat white, latte, cappuccino.
A coffee, please.
Yeah, but what kind of...
A coffee.
Right. A coffee.
What sort of filth is that?
It's a filter coffee.
That's not what I wanted.
We didn't say what you wanted.
I won't drink it. Make me another one and make it nicer.
It's a waste of coffee, isn't it? I'll make you another one as a goodwill gesture.
Oh no, picture has gone. Is it back?
But I do need you to tell me exactly what you want.
Okay.
Sorry, are you...
Shh. The coffee shop is closed.
This is my shop.
And now I'm not going to order a drink and you're going to go out of business. What do you think of that?
We'll be fine, mate. We've got loads of customers. You just won't have a coffee.
Right. Well, I'm going then.
Fine. It's a shame. We do nice coffee.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell all my friends that you are the worst coffee shop in the world, even though I really like you and I really like the coffees you make.
Why don't you just have a coffee then?
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Hi. Sorry. Just on the phone to my manager, and he says I really must come back with some form of hot drink.
Right. So what kind?
You'll have to ask my manager.
Can I speak to you?
Absolutely out of the question.
Well, it seems like we're at an impasse then.
Right, I'm leaving.
Fine.
Could I have a coffee?
I thought you were leaving.
Right, I am going. Actually, yeah, I'm going. Pretty much going. Pretty much out the door now. I'm gone now. Bye!
You're still here.
Could I stay for a little bit?
Yeah, can I get you anything?
No, because I hate you even though I would really like one of your delicious coffees.
You've got serious problems.
Please. Please. All I want's a coffee. No, I don't want coffee, I want tea. No, I don't want a hot drink at all. But can I get back to you?
Well, how long do you need?
I don't know. Can I have a tea while I wait?
A tea?
A tea.
A tea. A cup of tea.
Thank you. How much do I owe you?
That's £39 billion, please.
Fuck off.
I don't know if you could understand that was about Brexit. Okay, let's Brexit coffee. Let's move on. So hope you enjoyed that. Karen, Ken. Okay, so old Bexley and Sidcup by-election latest. Tories fear time is running out to shore up next test in North Shropshire. So we see here the Conservative MPs have warned that it would be too late to shore up support in North Shropshire with just 2 weeks before the next by-election. Boris Johnson has held on to his party seat in Old Bexley and Sidcup, but the Conservative majority was slashed from nearly 19,000 to just 4,478. A little caveat here is that it was not really 19,000. It was more like 14,000, because in 2017 it was 14,000. In 2019, obviously because of Get Brexit Done, it went up to 19,000. So I think the real figure is closer to 14,000. Louis French. So the Tories voted for a guy called French. Louis French, the Tory candidate, won the election triggered by the death of James Brokenshire with a 54.1% share of the vote compared to Labour's 30.8%. The turnout was massively low here. Backbenchers praised Justin Tomlinson, the deputy party chairman, for running a slick and a very solid campaign, which one said was the best I've seen in terms of competency. His team will now switch their focus to North Shropshire with a vote on the 16th of December triggered by the resignation of Owen Paterson amid a row over sleaze allegations. One said today result was a relief, but added North Shropshire will be different because there's a more organised opposition in place and other parties are taking it more seriously. Vibes coming back are not good, said one. JT's team switched to Shropshire on Monday, but I suspect it'll be too late. He can't be everywhere and was determined to get old Bexley over the line. And then it goes, okay, so is there... well, let me see if I can bring it up. Sure. Just a moment. Shropshire, just a moment. I'll bring it up here. No. Oh, I can't find it. One moment. Shropshire by-election, maybe. Okay, I'll bring it up here on the screen. So here are the candidates for North Shropshire. We have independent UKIP, Rejoin. Let me see if you can see it on the screen. Yes. Rejoin, Reclaim Party, Party. Okay, the Party, Heritage, Monster Raving Loony Party, Freedom Party. Then we have Greens, Liberal Democrats, Conservatives, Reform UK, and Labour. The last MP was Owen Paterson, who held the seat. He had a majority of 22,949. That was back in 2019. Let me see if I can get some... because I don't like looking at 2019. I think 2017 is a better barometer. So I would say a more realistic advantage he has is 16,355. I think it's possible. I think it's really possible because the Owen Paterson, much bigger character. The fact that it's about corruption, in regards to the previous one, I think there was also a sympathy vote in a sense that, the previous candidate was very popular, the previous MP was very popular, he was well liked, and I think a lot of people came out, and a lot of people who voted Tory probably voted out of respect for the previous MP. That's not going to be the case with Owen Paterson. There is a real chance, I think, of this seat flipping. But, as always, you need tactical voting. Because 33,000, the last Labour MP, Labour candidate, got 17,000. That's a massive mountain to climb. But I think there's a possibility here. Let me see so Ben Wood and Neil Strasty-Hurst. So these are the two main candidates. I don't know. I think there's a chance that Labour could win it. But they really need to campaign really well. They need massive turn. I think they need a pretty good turnout. Maybe not massive turnout, but they need a pretty good turnout. Otherwise, they're not going to take it. But fingers crossed. Okay, let's move back to some response. So some feedback from the Labour Party about the loss in Old Bexley and Sidcup, but. Once again, I don't think this is a real loss. I think they did quite well. There was a mountain to climb here, and turnout was against them. But they need to turn more people out if they really want to win.
Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, Shabana Mahmood, thanks for your time on Sky News this morning. Now, looking at the by-election yesterday in Old Bexley and Sidcup, Conservatives then they won by more than 50% of the election. And this is despite the allegations of sleaze and the crisis that we're seeing at the Channel crossings there. And they still managed to get 50% of the vote. This is not boding very well for you guys, is it?
Oh, look, Old Bexley and Sidcup is a Tory stronghold of long standing, and they had a majority of 19,000 in this seat, which was slashed last night to just over 4,000. And I think that what I saw when I was out there campaigning myself is that the incompetence of the Prime Minister and the litany of broken promises are catching up with him. And I think we've seen that reflected in the result by any measure and by any by-election standards. A 10.3% swing towards us is an extremely good result for the Labour Party, because we know that if that result was replicated on a uniform swing across the country at a general election, that would put us within touching distance of a majority Labour government. So I think the Prime Minister should be worried, because Tory campaigners in that seat will know that a true blue Tory heartland like Old Bexley and Sidcup was returning a lot of dissatisfaction with the Prime Minister and his government, and people are very frustrated. They are fed up. They're fed up with the sleaze. They're fed up with the broken promises. And I think many Tory voters registered that yesterday. Some of them stayed at home, and many of them made the switch over to the Labour Party. And for that reason, it's a very good result for us.
But are they, though? Because, as I said, they've got 50% of the vote. Also, your leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is really struggling to push through to people. He has made some gains, of course, when it comes to the polling this week. But overall, he's just not pushing through, is he? Boris Johnson still maintains his position.
Look, it's... Starmer... I think Starmer's reshuffle is going to help him, but he needs media... attention. He needs media coverage. He needs to be on TV all the time. His front bench need to be on TV all the time. I really wish, I really wish Keir Starmer would do an interview with James O'Brien. I really wish he'd do an interview with Andrew Marr. He needs to get his face all over the place. He needs to get people to understand who he is, because a lot of people don't actually know him. They know Boris Johnson, and most of us know who Keir Starmer is, and we have our opinions about him. But the majority of people in the country don't really know him. And one of the people who came out and voted for the Tory MP said, "Better the devil you know." Is she wearing a mask? No. Why? I always thought that democracy was to let the people have their say and their opinion, but we, the majority, have had our noses pushed out by a few. Unfortunately, there isn't a true democracy, because you end up voting, holding your nose in some cases, and voting for the lesser of two evils. And with a true proportional representation electoral system, you would actually have somebody who's closer to your way of thinking. He needs a personality. I heard that the turnout was extremely low in Sidcup. Serves them right to get the Tories back. Yeah, and this is a question I really have to ask myself. Is one of the people who was interviewed in Sidcup said, "I don't like Boris Johnson, he's an idiot. But I'm going to go and vote for the Conservatives anyway, because there is no alternative." I had my head in my hands, and I was saying to myself, well, then just don't go and vote. Like, if there's no one there that represents you, or the opposition is crap, don't give a vote to the Conservatives. Stay at home. Because by coming out and giving a vote to the Conservatives, even if you don't agree with them, you're helping them. You're validating Boris Johnson. Like, you can't say Boris Johnson's an idiot and then I'm going to vote for his candidate. What message does that send to Boris Johnson? If you stayed at home, you would have done a much better job. Really, better would be to vote for an alternative party. To spoil the vote even would be better than voting for the Conservatives. If you wrote, your name on the ballot card, or did a doodle, that would be better than actually voting for the Conservatives, because you can't complain about them and then vote for them. That makes no sense. For spoiling the vote, it sends a message. A limited message, yes. But the worst thing you can do is say, "I don't like Boris Johnson, now I'm going to vote for his party." Cap-doffing is hereditary. A very, very valid point. Message to Johnson, he doesn't listen. Unfortunately, he doesn't listen. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's move on. I want to bring up this story that was raised by someone earlier on in the super chats. Just talk about this for a moment. UK universities hit by strike action over pay and pensions. So more than 1 million students have been hit by 3 days of strike on campuses across England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, starting on Wednesday, in the latest round of an increasingly bitter dispute in which university leaders have accused left-wingers within the University and College Union of blocking progress over a possible deal. 58 universities will be affected, where staff backed a ballot on strike action called by the UCU, halting lectures and tuition at the country's largest universities, including the Open University and University College London. In Greater Manchester alone, more than 100,000 postgraduate and undergraduate students will have their studies disrupted, with strikes taking place at the University of Manchester, Manchester Metropolitan and Salford universities, as well as Royal Northern College of Music. The dispute is in part over the management and financing of the university's superannuation scheme, which includes pensions to the UK's older universities, as well as research institutes and academic think tanks. The two sides are also battling over low pay and issues such as secured fixed-term contracts used to employ an increasing number of teaching staff. In a statement issued on the eve of the strike, Universities UK, which represents the employers in the pensions talks, argued that the strike was supported only by a minority of staff and that the UCU's leadership was being attacked by left-wingers. UUK, the umbrella body of universities in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, said a potential deal over pensions had been undermined by the union's own negotiators, whom it described as members of the influential UCU left faction, saying that there was a pattern of checks on the UCU leadership by UCU left, who are affiliated with the Socialist Workers' Party. This is very interesting. So it seems that the union who is negotiating better paying conditions allegedly is affected by or affiliated to the Socialist Workers' Party. With such divisions in UCU decision-making bodies, it's difficult to see how a negotiated settlement over USS could ever be possible, UUK said in a statement. The response, a UCU spokesperson said, it is beyond disappointing that just as 50,000 university staff are set to walk out on strike, UUK has decided to spend its time targeting individual UCU members. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. Democracy is dying, unity is strength. Well said. And the likes of Priti Patel is determined to strip away people's rights, and the Tory government are trying to undermine the ability to protest as well. Thanks so much for that super chat. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat too. 12 years max, 12 years of Tory BS, and still we get, yeah, but Labour. So the opposition isn't a personality cult wrapped in slogans. So what? How much worse could things be under Labour? That's what is. Look, I used to be quite purist, but look, what the first, and I agree 100% with Phil from a different bias on this. The first goal must be to get rid of the Tories, to get them out. Everything else comes after that. You have to make deals with the devil if the objective is to get the Tories out. That has to be the first step. For me, it would have to be a case of getting the Tories out. So form a coalition with whatever parties you agree with, even if you disagree with them, to form a coalition, then introduce proportional representation, dissolve Parliament, call new elections under a proportional representation system where you would have a much better democracy, better form of democracy. The Tories would be destroyed. The Labour Party would take some pain. They would suffer the consequences of proportional representation. It would not help them. There are a lot of Labour MPs who are in safe seats. They would not be happy with that. They would vote against that. But it has to be for the good of the country. It can't be for the good of these MPs. And you see this all over the place, where members of a parliament will stop progress because it negatively affects them. They'll stop it. It's going to benefit the country, benefit democracy, benefit the party in the long term. No, I'm just thinking about my seat. And these people have to be removed because they're blocking progress. And in a case, someone I admire in the US was Bernie Sanders. He has a lot of faults, but one of the things he was going to do as president, if he had become president, was he would go to congressmen or senators who disagree with him, and he would say to them, look, I want to push through Medicare for all. If you're standing in my way, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to campaign against you. I'm going to do whatever I can to remove you and put in somebody who is supportive of that. And you have to be the same. And unfortunately, I don't think Keir Starmer has that power. I don't think he's interested in doing that, unfortunately. I fear that Starmer and others are hoping that, yes, we'll get enough of a swing to the left and then we'll be swept into power and then we can do whatever we want, maintaining first past the post until we're kicked out. And then after another number of generations, things will swing back to us again, and it's sort of business as usual. And that can't go on. It's not sustainable. Britain deserves first past the post going in the bin. They deserve something much better. But they need to form coalitions. They need to get involved in tactical voting. It's the only way. And I see a non-easy marriage between Labour and the SNP in the future. That's going to be very difficult, but it's the only way that Labour would be able to, I'm pretty sure it's the only way Labour would be able to hold power, unless there's some miraculous swing. But at the moment I don't see it, because Keir Starmer is not this figure that the public look up to. He needs to be some sort of almost viewed as a deity. That's what, someone fresh, someone new, someone who's breaking the mold. That's what he needs to be in order to convince. He needs to do so. I don't know. He needs to pull some, someone out of a burning building or something like that. Don't stage it, of course. But that's what he needs to do, where people will go, my God, I want to support that guy. My God, he should be our Prime Minister. Where even the media stand back in awe. That's the sort of level of support that Keir Starmer needs if he wants to win in a landslide. And I think is it possible? I don't know. Because something could happen where Keir Starmer is in the right place at the right time and it benefits him and his team. But I don't see that happening at the moment. So with this strike, it seems to be much more political than in other cases, in other situations where you would have a normal disagreement between, for example, the university or a college and its staff. But it's something to watch quite closely. James Gillen, thanks so much for that super chat. Democracy is dying as the Tories wrap their shitty policies in jingoism. While sleaze runs rampant, Labour needs to formally announce tactical alliances to oust Conservatives. I agree and I disagree with you, James. Thanks for that super chat. But I agree with you that they need to act tactically. Announcing it is a problem, because the Labour Party have, as part of their constitution, not to form alliances or not to field candidates, or not to campaign. So, in reality, tactical voting takes place, but they're not supposed to broadcast it. They're not supposed to make it official. That would be against the constitution of the Labour Party. So yes, it definitely does take place, but they don't. I don't actually think it's necessary for them to broadcast it. People on the ground will probably know. Now, this is okay when it comes to like a by-election or a particular vote taking place, but on a national level, I agree with you. It would have to be broadcast, and it would probably require a change of the Labour Party's constitution, because I think something like this, organising it on the national level, if Boris Johnson called a general election tomorrow or next year, the time required to get all the pieces in place in order to benefit from tactical voting, I don't know if there would be the time. I don't know if there's the political will. It would require a lot of work, a lot of arm twisting. But it's not impossible. But I think from a political point of view, the Labour Party don't want to be seen as forming coalitions or engaging in tactical voting, but it certainly does happen. Thanks for that super chat. Let me read some more of your comments. Max, why the hell are you promoting the union? Where did I promote the union? I'm not sure what you're on about. What you're talking about there, Wayne. I didn't promote the union. Which union are you talking about? Unless you're talking about the union in this article, or are you talking about not the union with the capital U? I'm not sure what you mean. Can you please clarify? The SNP's ultimate goal is independent Scotland. If they think allying with Labour helps them do that, they would. Yeah, they would. See, the problem is if you have Labour joining with the SNP and the SNP saying we want independence, a referendum. See, it's not. Maybe I'm not reading into this very well, but Labour can say, yeah, we'll agree to a referendum, but we're not going to support independence. I think that would be a perfectly acceptable position for Labour to take. And if the Tories say, oh, look at them giving in to another referendum, they should be defending the union. But that's nothing to do with the union. That's saying, yes, the Scottish people can have their referendum. They had one before, okay. We don't have a problem with them having another one. But we're going to defend the union. That's what the Labour Party would say. Because allowing a referendum does not mean that Scotland becomes independent. They have to vote first. SNP confidence and supply type of government, that's possible, but you need to be able to see. It would be difficult for Labour to operate that way because they would be very far behind forming a government, I think. And it'd be very difficult for them to, on the one hand, yes, Labour and the SNP would agree on many things. But on the things they disagree on, it could be extremely problematic for the Labour Party. Why can Labour not announce a moral coalition with the SNP? Because many people in the Labour Party don't like the SNP. It's not so much the voters, it's more the members. A lot of people in Labour don't like the SNP. They completely disagree with the SNP. And they don't want Scottish independence. And they see from the Labour point of view, many people in Labour would see it as a betrayal. They would say, look, why are we forming a coalition with a party that wants to destroy the union? We're a unionist party, or we want to maintain the union. That's the way they would see it. Not everyone. I think a lot of people in Labour understand that Scotland is going to become independent at some stage, and that Labour shouldn't stand in the way. But I don't believe for a minute that Labour would support an independent Scotland. However, the destiny of the country is not up to political parties, it's up to the people. Yes, agree 100%, Stuart. If people vote for the SNP and the SNP's manifesto is independence, then that has to be respected. If Boris Johnson's party manifesto is to make people poorer and people vote for that, then you have to respect that. That's the consequences of what people vote for. It doesn't matter who Labour has as leader. Oh gosh. I'm reading people's comments without context, so I have to be careful. Scottish Greens are already a coalition with the SNP. Yeah, that's true. Scottish Labour would implode. I don't think they can implode anymore. They only have one MP left. Labour only support the union because they think Scotland will turn back to them and help them get a majority. Yeah, thanks. I understand Labour's dilemmas, but Scotland will become independent. Labour should support Scots' will. See, I think there are two things here. That one is supporting a referendum and supporting independence are two different things. And I think it's fully it's a position that unionists in the Labour Party should support. They should support allowing Scotland. I don't even like using the word allowing. Supporting Scotland in having a referendum. They should support that, because if you think the union is strong, then a referendum is no problem. And I say this to unionists in Northern Ireland as well. If you truly believe that the people of Northern Ireland want to stay as part of the union, then you should welcome a referendum. You should welcome a border poll. Because once it's demonstrated that the union is strong, then a lot of these questions will go away for another 10, 15 years. So why would you be against that unless you don't think the union is strong and you're just lying to the public? I would prefer, if unionists came out and said, look, we don't want a vote because we're afraid the union is weak. I'd have more respect for somebody to say that. Do I think a border poll in Ireland should happen now? Probably not, because I don't think it's the right time. People are still getting used to Brexit. They'd implode in Scotland, not Westminster. Scottish Labour and the SNP are bitter enemies. Yeah, and I think that would complicate the situation as well. And so you imagine that the SNP in Westminster have formed a type of coalition with the Labour Party in Westminster. And how would the Labour Party work with the SNP in Scotland? Though they would be in the minority, so they would have to be in the opposition. There'd be no need for the SNP to work out a coalition with the Labour Party in Scotland. So I think it would complicate things a little. Because, for example, the Green Party in England is not contrary to the SNP in Scotland, or the SNP in general, on most things. I don't know where the Greens in Westminster, the Green in Westminster, what their position on the union is. I actually haven't read it. Anyway, let's move on. I just want to back to Brexit for a moment. Brexit leaves EU-bound Christmas presents out in the cold. This was from Sunday. It says an increase in red tape, not the right color to use, but red tape and charges means headaches for those sending goods to Europe. So if you're sending goods to Europe, be careful, because Britain is, remember, a third country. People preparing to send Christmas parcels to friends and family in Europe face being caught out by post-Brexit red tape and charges that threaten to take some of the joy out of gift giving. A warning has also been sounded that some of those who have sent gifts to the EU this year have encountered problems ranging from delays and unexpected charges on items to items going missing. Not good. This will be the first time most people have encountered rules that came in this year relating to VAT and customs charges applying to items being posted to the EU. The consumer organisation Which told The Observer that its research indicates that the vast majority of people know little or nothing about the new rules. That's what I mean. It's like you guys are on the ball when it comes to Brexit, but the majority of people in the majority of the public have no idea. The charges brought about by Brexit have created a greater burden of customs paperwork for consumers and couriers alike, said Adam French, Which consumer rights expert. You have to attach customs declaration forms to everything you send, very clearly describing what it is and where it originated from. As part of the raft of Brexit changes that took place on the 1st of January this year, the EU now treats postal items from the UK as it did non-EU items before. What Brexiteers wanted, of course. Further changes related to VAT took effect on the 1st of July this year. As a result, customs forms are now mandatory for all gifts and goods sent to a country outside the UK, except when sending items from Northern Ireland to the EU. In some cases, the recipient may have to pay customs or VAT charges and a handling fee before they can claim the parcel. And if you have ever bought something from China or from the United States, sometimes, depending on the cost, you would receive a notification that you have to pay the customs charge, and then you would be able to have the item. With general items imported to the EU with a value of €22 or £18 or less, are no longer exempt from the VAT. The good news for UK consumers and for those receiving presents from them is that gifts under £45 are now being sent to the EU remain free of VAT or charges. So if your item is under £45, you should be okay for VAT. Okay, or other charges. So that's good. So try and keep it under €45. Sorry, not pounds. Yes, £38, €45. I'll deal with the devil myself if it's meant ousting the individual who spent the last 12 years systematically destroying my country, the Tories. Well said, Gareth. And I think that's, when I talk about the devil, I'm talking about, the devil. I'm talking about Murdoch, okay? It could be a case that Keir Starmer needs to, and I hate saying this, and I hope it's not necessary, but Keir Starmer may need to get on the good side of Murdoch, because it seems that Rupert Murdoch is the one who decides elections in the UK, not voters, not political parties. If the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Express, or whatever ones he owns, if they get behind a candidate, then they're a shoo-in. Isn't that sad? Isn't it sad that if the Daily Mail supports you, then you're likely to win? If the Daily Mail is against you, you're likely to lose. Isn't that a wonderful demonstration of democracy? Democracy at work. And that could be the devil that I'm talking about here. And we've already seen how some members of the Labour Party have written articles for, I think it was the Daily Mail or the Telegraph, I'm not sure which it was. And look, that may be the price to pay to get the Tories out. Best not last with Blair. He needed to promise not to join the euro. And yeah, I remember that. It was what I never really understand. What was the problem with joining the euro? Oh, because we would remove the Queen from our paper, from our paper money. How many people, when they're buying stuff, take out a £5 note or a £10 note and hold it up and say, "I'm so proud that the Queen appears on our money"? Don't they know that once she's gone, it'll be Charles or it will be William on the note? Does it make that much of a difference to them? Yeah, I liked the old Irish money, but it was money. And if I want to see it again, I can Google it, find an image of it. Or if I look around my parents' home, I might find one or two of them still lying around. But it doesn't change my life in a way for the better. I really don't understand these things. Artemis, great to see you. Max, honestly now, do you think that Brexiteers really believed the English exception would triumph? Or did they really think this shit would happen? Look, I think if you look at some of the old... Thanks for that super chat, Artemis, and great to see you on the stream. Hope you're calling James O'Brien from time to time. Keep him on his toes. Something about the Brexiteer. If you look back at people like Daniel Hannan, a real Brexiteer, not somebody who jumped on board the Boris Brexit bus after the referendum. He made some promises and he's still trying to stick to them. So he'll be able to twist it. Yeah, we're trading less with the EU. So he would say something like, before the referendum, no, we'll trade just as much with the EU or even more. And now that it's not happening, he will say, but that was part of the plan all along. Part of the plan was to trade less with the European Union. So they will, if they said, I'm going out to buy a new car, and they came back with a bicycle, they would say, no, my plan was always to buy a bicycle. It was never to buy a car. I convinced, and then they would try to explain why the bicycle would be a better mode of transport than a car. That's what they do. That's what they've always been doing. It's ideological. they can't be honest. They can't say, I actually made a mistake. I don't know why, because I think it takes a lot of courage. Maybe that's the problem. They have no courage. But I respect people who say, I was wrong. Especially in the videos when there's people who said, look, I voted for Brexit, it was a mistake. I have a huge amount of respect for people like that. Because there's nothing wrong with admitting that you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The problem is somebody who makes a mistake and then turns around and tries to twist it into, no, I didn't really do that, or I never really believed that. Or worse than that, they will say, yes, I was wrong. Now I'm going to vote for the people, once again, who lied to me. What can we do with people like that? How can you reason with somebody who understands that they made a mistake and then turns around and votes and supports the people who lied to them? They know it's a lie, but they'll vote for Boris Johnson anyway. They say, well, because the other side are crap, or they don't believe in the country enough. So I've been fed the lies from the Daily Mail and the Express over the last number of years. I've realized that they were lies, but I'm going to continue to believe their lies when it comes to something else. I don't know. Tories have never had courage. No. Always blaming somebody else. Look at what happened with the when it comes to Brexit. It's always somebody else's fault. Businesses, it's your fault because you've been hiring. And remember the guy I did the video on. It's your fault because you've been hiring people from abroad all these years. You need to start hiring people from Britain. Or you need to fix the problems yourself. Well, we can't fix the problems because we need to hire people from abroad because we can't find them here. That's not our problem. You fix it. They can't take any responsibility for anything. Okay, guys, we're almost near the end of the stream. I just want to I want to share with you an interesting story. Oh my goodness. So COVID-19 DUP leader rebukes Sammy Wilson over ping pong tweet. Sammy Wilson is a member of the DUP. Sammy Wilson is a very particular individual. Is an unusual character. He's a bit of a joke, really. It says here, Democratic Unionist Party leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson has rebuked his party colleague Sammy Wilson by saying COVID is no joking matter. It was in response to a tweet posted by Mr. Wilson outlining his views about the Omicron variant of coronavirus. Now, Sammy Wilson recently voted with other lunatics in the Conservative Party against the new restrictions. You know, asking people to wear face coverings, face masks in restaurants and in public transport. Remember, Boris Johnson got rid of all of that. And some MP, and he said, okay, we better bring it back. Shouldn't have gotten rid of it in the first place, but we're going to bring it back now. We're going to reinforce it. And some lunatic fringe within the Conservative Party, and once again, I don't know if I'm being overly cynical here, if these are people just pretending to be stupid or they really are stupid, but in Sammy Wilson's case, there's no pretension whatsoever. There's no faking here. There's no acting taking place. Not pretension, acting, I should say. So it says the East Antrim MP described the variant as mild and said he would be voting against more restrictions. He said, "Ding dong merrily on high" will be replaced this Christmas by "ping pong miserably we sigh." Okay, jeez. So the BBC is not responsible for the content of external sites. And you can see here Sammy Wilson's tweet. And then he went on to say they are not proportionate to deal with the spread of the mild Omicron variant. That's what he said. Mr. Wilson voted against the policy of mask wearing in England this week, which is funny. Isn't this extremely funny? So Sammy Wilson is in Northern Ireland. Sammy Wilson is an MP for Northern Ireland. And the rules for wearing masks and dealing with the pandemic are devolved powers. These are things that the executive in Northern Ireland deal with. And Sammy Wilson voted against measures that would affect England. Just think about that for a moment. Okay, now if he should have abstained. If he disagreed with it, he should have abstained. Or he should have, he should have abstained. That would have been the most reasonable position he took. No, he voted against measures that would protect English people. Just think about that for a moment. You have this guy who's basically a foreigner, okay, voting in your parliament against measures to keep you safe. Living on another planet. Just think, isn't that, I understand the UK government vote on things that affect Northern Ireland, okay, and people in Northern Ireland are not happy about that. But you could try and make arguments about, okay, this is maybe it's the best for Northern Ireland or whatever. But he's voting on something that does not affect him. Generally things that happen in Parliament are supposed to affect the entire of the UK. But he voted on something that has no impact whatsoever on him. That's going to put people in England at risk. Anyway, when asked about the tweet, Sir Jeffrey Donaldson said, "COVID is no joking matter. People have died from COVID. That is clear. It is incumbent upon all public representatives to support the public health messaging to ensure that we take all the steps that are necessary to protect ourselves and each other, and that we get vaccinated and get our booster jabs." Sir Jeffrey said the DUP supported the public health guidance and wanted people to follow it. All of this is essential to ease the pressure on the health service this winter and ensure that we get through the winter without lockdowns, without people being out of work and our schools remaining open. This is crucially important, and I'm clear as a leader of the DUP. We want people to get their injections, their vaccinations, so that they can work together to get through this and see Northern Ireland on the other side of this winter in a strong place. Asked if Mr. Wilson was wrong to write the tweet, Sir Jeffrey said, "I will be speaking to all my colleagues to ensure that they follow and support and promote public health guidance when it comes to COVID." Sammy Wilson is an idiot and the DUP can't control him. But I find it quite disgusting that he voted on something that would impact the lives of people in England and not impact him. But maybe Scottish people know exactly how I feel. Some folk don't want vaccines. I love that. Some people don't want vaccines. They're just called anti-vaxxers. They're sadly misinformed, like stupid anti-maxers. Very well said, Wee Scottstock. Thanks so much for that super chat. I love that. Vaccines. Oh, wonderful. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream for tonight. We'll end it here. So we ended it on this ping pong tweet. Oh my god. Oh, Sammy. What would we do with you? What would we do without you? You're a laugh a minute. Anyway, we'll finish here, guys. So before we finish, we have our one for the road once again. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on the stream tonight. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. Remember, you can become a Patreon. You get access to Discord. We have our post-stream chat on Discord after. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. Yes, guys, before I finish, we have a special guest next Tuesday. Hopefully everything is going well. I'll post some more information about that over the weekend on the channel. Make sure to check out the your poll, Max. I don't see the poll. What happened to the poll? The poll disappeared. I don't see the poll anymore. No, I'm not sure what happened to the poll. The poll disappeared. Sorry about that. Your poll, Max. Where is it? It's gone from my screen. No. I can't see the poll. You keep saying the poll, but I can't see the poll. I can't find the poll. No, I don't see it. I don't know where it's gone. I'm sorry. 54-43. So will Boris Johnson be replaced? 54 to 43. Ah, yes. Okay. 57% yes. It's in the chat. I can't see the whole chat. Sorry about that. So the poll says that it's 57 yes, 43 no. The poll says the Irish are us. Great show, Max. Have a fantastic weekend. So yes, so our final result, probably almost final, is 774 votes, more than in a by-election. 57% yes. So Boris Johnson will be replaced. So that'll be interesting to see by whom. So the polls went home. So guys, have a great weekend. Before we finish, of course, we have our one for the road. I almost forgot. I got distracted about polls. So I hope you enjoy this. I'm sure you will. And I'll see you in a moment.
There are reports that at the height of lockdown last year, Downing Street staffers held Christmas parties, one which was attended by the Prime Minister. I'm joined by the Prime Minister's spokesman. What's your response? We don't recognise those reports, and all COVID rules were followed. The Prime Minister has failed to deny that it happened. Are you saying that it didn't happen? I don't recognise those reports, and all COVID rules were followed. You don't recognise those reports because they're false, or you just don't recognise them? Yes. To which question? All COVID rules were followed. Look, did you have a Christmas party? Does a party imply that everyone had fun? Well, possibly. Then no. I'll put it another way. Were there any gatherings of 40 to 50 people at which the Prime Minister spoke and alcohol was consumed? Have you ever tried listening to the Prime Minister without consuming alcohol? Did anyone put up mistletoe? No, the Prime Minister's wife made sure of that. Although I think he might have had some in his lapel. And belt. So you're admitting you were at these parties. I was not present at any parties and COVID rules were followed at all times. Does that mean there weren't any parties or just that you weren't invited to them? I'm extremely popular within Number 10 and definitely invited to all the parties. Which didn't happen. Don't you think it's a bit rich that at a time when people were ordered to stay indoors and not see friends and family, that the Prime Minister and his staff were having a party? I don't recognise those words. Which words? I don't recognise the words you're saying. What do you mean you don't recognise the words I'm saying? Was that a question? Just sounded like noise to me. Are you trying to avoid the subject? Just sort of blah 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 blah? This is ridiculous. Blah 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 blah? But I can say that COVID rules were followed at all times. Thank you, Prime Minister spokesman. Still nothing. Next up, as President Macron calls Boris Johnson a clown, our panel of experts debates whether or not that's fair and suggests a series of other swear words that might be more accurate.
Wonderful. So guys, have a great weekend. Thanks once again to everyone who came on the stream tonight. Thanks to all the to everyone who sent a super chat, greatly appreciated, and thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. I'll see you all next Tuesday. We should have our, as I said, we'll have a special guest. I'll give some more details about that over the weekend, so do check out the community page on the channel, and I'll see you then. So have a great weekend. Stay safe and wear your damn mask. Okay, good night.